back to Just Energy Radio with Dr. Rita Louise.
Hello and welcome back to Just Energy Radio. I'm your host, Dr. Rita Louise, and thank you all for staying tuned to the second hour of the show. This hour of Just Energy Radio is brought to you by the Institute of Applied Energetics, where you can learn to become a medical intuitive energy medicine practitioner or clairvoyant counselor, all from the comfort of your own home. Check out www.appliedenergeticsinstitute.com. And remember, you can listen to Just Energy Radio on the Inception Radio Network live, as well as the archives, or you can go to the Just Energy Radio webpage, sign up for our weekly newsletter to keep you informed of our upcoming guests, as well as check out all the archives there. You can also listen to the show on YouTube, on the Just Energy Radio channel, or like us on Facebook, which our little Facebook page is, guess what? Just Energy Radio. And so I just want to remind everyone, this is the one time a year that we open up the phone lines to use that where you can call in and get a reading or just kind of share your 2 cents with us on air. The call-in number is 888-919-2355. That's 888-919-2355. One last announcement. I've been doing a lot of interviewing talking about our new book, Man-Made, The Chronicles of Our Extraterrestrial Gods. It's available through our website, www.soulhealer.com, where you can get an autographed copy of Man-Made. However, since it's Black Friday weekend, everything has to be on sale on Black Friday. And so we are offering the Kindle edition of Man-Made, The Chronicles of Our Extraterrestrial Gods on Amazon for $4.99. That's under $5. Barely can get a hamburger for that much these days. Huh, Wayne?
And yeah, not only that, but Dr. Rita is not talking about the ability you can have to donate dollars to the show if you go to our website and make a donation. We'd welcome that too. I mean, we just upgraded our studio, and we could use a few extra dollars to even improve what we do right now.
So can you tell he handles a lot of my marketing stuff? Anyway, but we have a caller. We have Colleen on the air. Colleen, are you there?
I'm here.
Hi, Colleen. How can I help you today?
Hi, Dr. Rita. Well, I made the comment about the book Initiation, and if you wanted to.
Yeah, so I never heard of the book. So could you give us a little blurb about who wrote it, what it's about, etc.?
The author's name is Elizabeth H. And she has passed on now. She was in her 90s when she passed on. And the book is about her. I'm getting weird feedback, so I'm hesitating here. Her book is about a retelling of a spontaneous flashback that she had about her life in ancient Egypt, and I'm only guessing that it was at least 35,000 years ago. Could be shorter, could be longer.
There are a lot of people that believe that there was a civilization that existed in Egypt long before the what we know as dynastic Egypt. And there are those people that believe that that whole Giza complex was built prior to, what we know of as Egypt today. Actually, I had Robert Schock on the show a few months ago, and we were talking about the Sphinx and the Sphinx enclosure, which was actually kind of a funny conversation, with my comment being if the Sahara was there, if the desert was a desert when they built the Sphinx, the Sphinx is beneath the surface level of the desert. And so why would they build something that they knew was consistently going to get filled up with sand? over and over again. I mean, the comments in the chat room was, well, someone would have to be out there sweeping it out every day, which only leads you to believe that it was constructed prior to the Sahara becoming a desert area, which would mean that there were people that were smart, that could build things like the Sphinx. Don't you think, Wayne?
Yeah, I think we avoided the pyramid in the book because of the amount of information that comes from Egypt that doesn't seem to fit. We call it the puzzle. If you cut all the pieces down so that they all are neat squares, they'll all fit together, but they don't. The picture on the top of the box and the picture that you put together don't match, and that's what we experience when we look at the Egyptians and their pyramids in particular. We find there's some information that comes from outside mainstream and some in mainstream where they talk about forests, lots of rain, lots of water all around those pyramids, and it made no sense whatsoever to put a sphinx, for example, this enormous object, underwater, or to put it in a place where it would be subjected to sandstorms routinely, and like Dr. Rita said, having to dig them out on a constant basis. All of this had to take place before it was desert, and that's my opinion. And I also think that if that's true, and in fact there were forests in Egypt, then the pyramids also existed prior to the Sphinx, which would push the timeline way back before mankind. And we know this is true. Mankind was in the caves, dragging their knuckles and grunting a lot. So some other civilization, perhaps, if it wasn't, those guys who were in the caves, it had to be another civilization. That's the only way we can address the pyramids and their size. And as you look more and more into the pyramid weirdness, you also find that there are pyramids not just in South America, but they're also in North America. They're also in Europe. They're also in China. And there are myriads of pictures of these pyramids, and they are all being ignored. So we know there's got to be something about these pyramids that mainstream media, mainstream history has chosen to either ignore or has intentionally left out so that we don't know the rest of the story.
So, Colleen, you had mentioned in the chat room about the impression that the god was, or the pharaoh was half god, half man, which does play out in mythology. But were there any other exciting little details that she shared in that book that kind of sound relevant to our conversation?
She talked about the pyramids, and no, they weren't drugged by ropes and pulleys and that kind of thing. They were. I read the book a couple of years ago, and I'm in the process of rereading it, so my memory's a little bit hazy. But I believe she said those stones were transported by some sort of energy beam, as opposed to not sound or possibly sound harmonics. I can't remember exactly which, but they were not manually transported. And there's all kinds of really phantasmagorical kind of things that she talks about, and you just kind of go, what? And it's really quite an amazing book. And yes, the gods, there was a population, a civilization of ancient humans living there, and some of them were sort of lesser, not necessarily cave people, but very primitive, and they revered these aliens as gods, of course, and the gods came in human forms, and they were able to adapt their form as they saw fit, and they actually mated with sort of the upper level of the human civilization, and then the offspring were then made the pharaohs. The pharaohs were never human.
What the author, it makes me curious. The author what's her background? Do you know? I mean, did she come out of the archaeology, ancient mystery area? Was she, and I'm going to just say it this way, a woo-woo person, or was she just a regular person that gained all of this information and was sharing it without any association to what to me sounds like a very cogent theory based on our new understanding of our past?
She was a Hungarian woman, born in the early part of the 1900s. She recalls at a very young age, like the age of 4 or 5, of feeling that her parents, her human parents, were not her real parents, and she wanted to go home to her real home, her real parents, and of course this caused a lot of strife within her family. And she always had extremely exceptional visions and knew things that she really shouldn't have known, especially at a very, very, very young age. And it was, it's just it's something that you have to read to fully comprehend what it is that she's talking about. The first time I read it, it was I had a hard time kind of grasping it. But she also talked about the origins of the astrology, how all those signs came to be, and their true meanings, and lots of things. And she was a very clairvoyant person. She would be considered, like some of us exceptional people who are thought of as being just weird.
Right. Well, join the crowd. Colleen, thanks so much for calling in. And I hope you had a great Thanksgiving, and I'll talk to you soon.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you. Well, that's pretty interesting. I mean, it just makes me wonder, if people come up with this information that aren't part of a group and don't have these preconceived notions, and they're getting this information, whether it's, and I'm not going to try invalidating it, but from a channel or a past life regression, or a spontaneous memory, does that add to the credibility of information that's being put out today by New Thought thinkers? I'm talking to you like a conversation, Wayne.
Oh. I get it. Wasn't aware of that. It could be. You know that I'm a huge skeptic when it comes to psychic healing and communicating by mind. I think it's certainly possible, and may have happened in the past where we actually were able to communicate telepathically. But I don't know. I'm just a skeptic to that because I haven't seen a whole lot of evidence to it. However, let's go back to the pyramids for a minute. I'd like to take this out of context where we're talking about moving the stones. I'd like to do just a little mental experiment with the listeners, and that would be take a penny and place it on a table, and then place a speaker underneath that table and turn the volume up really loud. What happens to that penny? If you're paying attention, that penny's going to start moving. It's going to move a lot. Now, how much energy did it require you, the person, to actually get the penny to move? None. Can you move things that are heavier than you by moving the ground underneath it? The answer is, oh yeah, you certainly can. And I'm thinking, they talk about the ramps at the pyramids. What if they actually had a device that would vibrate the ground so that the rocks would move easily up those ramps? Then it would take far fewer people to do the job, and they could move it quickly, and maybe they could actually beat the time requirements that our current mathematicians suggest they had to do.
Well, maybe they could have a ramp like the ones at the airport where you just stand on and it shuffles you across the whole area. I mean, come on.
Oh, those ramps didn't have any moving parts as far as I could tell. All right, I'm being picky, but
Picky. Okay, but you know what I want to talk about a little bit since we don't have any callers, although you can call in and join our conversation or get a reading live on air by calling 888-919-2355. And if you're just listening and not calling in, you can go to Amazon.com and purchase your copy of Man-Made: The Chronicles of Our Extraterrestrial Gods, $4.99 this weekend only.
we're being so unholy about this.
Well, I'm just, talking. But one of the things that they talk about historians talk about in Egypt, and is that when they went and they painted the inside of all of these pyramids, and you look at the pictures of the inside of the pyramids, and they are not the grand pyramids, not the ones on Giza because they don't have any inscriptions on them, but like the tomb of Seti, or some of the ones in the Valley of the King. I mean, they are elaborately decorated. They're carved, they're painted, for the amount of work that went into those. It had to have taken years and years of work, because they are just floor to ceiling done, not just the carving but the painting. And I'm sure you can only get so many guys into that little room without it becoming one totally unbearable. But the other thing that's really important to notice is that they are all, underground or internal to a structure, and they did not have privy to electrical lighting. And so the current speculation is that they had like little oil lamps or candles or some kind of a torch that lit the room up so that they were able to carve and not have any spelling mistakes, which I totally don't get. These monuments, the inside, putting the entire Book of the Dead inside these structures. But we had a very unintentional experiment happen at our house.
Let me point out that some science is based on non-science, and this is a non-science scientific finding.
Right. Okay. So, not mentioning any names like Wayne.
Or me.
Yeah. Likes to burn candles in our kitchen because he thinks they smell nice, which is fine. He likes to burn candles. And so they will burn, on the weekends for a few hours at a time, maybe a lot of hours at a time. But it's just for like a day here, a day there. It's not an everyday thing. And so one of the things that had happened is that there was soot that ended up getting on the wall and on the ceiling. Well, with Thanksgiving being here and we were having company come over to our house, I decided that I was going to go and wash the soot off the wall. I mean, it was painted with latex paint. You would think that, because it was in our kitchen, that this stuff should just wipe up. That's what you would think. They obviously did it in the pyramids because there's not any soot residue on any of their structures, and they didn't even have latex paint. However, and here's the big however. So I go and I try to clean the soot off the wall, which is definitely a semi-gloss latex paint. Put that in there intentionally in the kitchen so it would clean up easy. And the soot had literally embedded itself into the paint. Now, and then there was the ceiling, which was a semi-flat paint, which we're not even going to talk about. By the time I got done cleaning it,
the paint acted more like a sandstone, so that if you dropped a drop of water on it, it would spread dramatically in 360 degrees away from the point of the water dropping. In this case, though,
it looked really bad, really bad. And I took soft scrub to that surface. I tried all kinds of things to clean that surface in order to get the dirt up. Now, this was an area that was maybe like a 3-foot square, like 3 feet on the wall and then 3 feet on the ceiling, like a literal square of area that we needed to deal with. But it was so bad and so embedded in the materials that we literally last weekend repainted our entire kitchen because we couldn't get it up. We could not get the soot up. And so I find it hard to believe that they're trying to tell us, with our recent findings, because they are very scientific, because we did them. So they're scientific. With our recent findings, that they can say that these people were in there with torches and oil lamps and all of these things and did the amount of amazing artwork inside those structures and somehow either did not have any soot residue at all, which would be a miracle, or somehow cleaned it. Because we couldn't clean it even with modern cleaning materials, and I don't think they had that. And if they went in there with something that was kind of abrasive to get it off, it would just scrape the paint off, and there would be evidence of it, or there would be smearing of paint, or there would be evidence of them trying to clean it up. Don't you think, Wayne?
Oh, I do. You need to try this. Well, maybe you don't need to try it. Just
don't do this at home.
Yeah. Don't try this at home. These were done by absolute amateurs. But the point is, even if you go to the Great Pyramid of Giza, take a look at the pictures of them, listen to the stories about them. You do not hear stories of soot and other garbage on the ceilings of the walls. And like Dr. Rita said, they couldn't have cleaned it all off. There would have been residue of some kind, there would have been watermarks or something to show that they actually took that stuff out in order to keep it crystal clean. So the only other option was, now remember, these are tunnels that go deep into the ground or deep into the pyramid. They were dark. If there wasn't light, they were dark. And so we're trying to understand how they lit these pyramids up. There have been theories like they bounced light off of mirrors and
copper mirrors,
and some experiments have been done with that. And I think after like 4 mirrors, there's no more light being reflected off them, and so it doesn't go very deep into the tunnels. So we still look at the soot issue, and it's not answered, and I doubt seriously will ever be answered properly. However, Rita and I believe that we know the answer to the question, and it is they didn't use anything that burned. If they did, they would have to clean it or paint it or something.
Yeah, with a nice decorative off-white like we put in our kitchen. It would be nice.
Sure made a good Thanksgiving dinner, though. It smelled nice and clean in there, and, of course, with the turkey cooking and all the family here. The kitchen was very nice. Totally unintended, though.
But if anybody has any thoughts or ideas about how they managed to have that happen, paint in there and carve in there without leaving a sooty residue, give us a call at 888-919-2355. That's 888-919-2355. Speaking about those carvings, some of the ones that you look at, I don't even know how they could possibly have done them. I think of, I have the image in my head. I can't remember which one it is, but it's an obelisk that I can't even remember which one. And you look at it, and it looks like it's almost laser inscribed. It's deep. The lines are very straight and symmetrical. And they're trying to make us believe that they used some little copper tool that they couldn't even keep sharp to carve these things, which doesn't make any sense. And I can't even imagine going and carving the amount of material that they did in some of these tombs in any kind of timely manner and not having any mistakes. You look at those surfaces and you don't see any kind of like Bondo or like wood fill that you would use in woodworking when us dumb people make stuff because we don't know how to do it and have to fill it back in. But you don't see that kind of stuff. You don't see mistakes on those surfaces.
No, you certainly don't. I'd like to take us back to man-made. I think it ties into this pretty well. We've been asked, we've done a lot of traveling since the book has been out, a whole month? Anyway, we've done a lot of traveling, and a frequent question we keep getting asked is what makes man-made, the chronicles of our extraterrestrial gods, different from the other stories that talk about the history of mankind? And
other than it's $4.99 if you get the Kindle version this weekend?
Yeah, other than the $4.99 you would have to pay in order to get the Kindle version, that is a fairly, I think it's a fair question to ask. And so I think I'd like to, Rita hates it when I tell this story, but I'm going to do this anyway. What
Okay,
we
and then
did.
we have a caller. Go ahead.
Okay. Well, then I'll save it till after the caller because it's fairly lengthy, and I'd like to get the point across. If you don't mind, Rita.
Are we going to talk campfires?
We're going to talk campfires.
All right,
You're gonna
my
love
favorite
it.
story. Okay, well, we're going to take the caller from the 972. It's somebody from the Dallas area.
Oh, welcome, Big D, Fort Worth. Fun in the sun. In fact, it's a very nice day here. Almost some clouds out there and about 75 degrees. Absolutely wonderful. Where's our caller?
A weather report?
Is this
Hello.
Jim? Is this Jim?
I'm afraid so.
I know that voice anywhere. Hey, Jim. Not James,
Hi.
but Jim, our favorite chat room monitor. Hey, Jim, so
Oh,
what's up?
What? All that
I don't know. You
speculation
called
about
me, I
lighting
didn't call
up
you.
the tombs and the pyramids.
Wait, say that again?
I said, all that speculation about lighting up the tombs and the pyramids, don't you guys get how they did all that?
No.
Reflected sunlight. Just polish
We
up a
addressed that.
big piece
We're
of
talking
metal.
about the mirrors and using them to reflect it down into the holes. However, science has shown that the mirrors can only go up to about 4 or 5 mirrors, and then the light just disappears. There's not enough reflective property.
Well, you got to polish it better. There's been actually, I've seen the schlock TV shows where they reflected light way down deep into holes and caverns, and it can be done. It's just that you just got to pay attention and have somebody on each mirror adjusting it as the sun moves. What they had plenty of people. That's the
I do
way they
tend
lit
to.
'em
I
up.
agree with you on this. To the respect that, the lighting can be done if it's a direct line and it's like a flashlight. You shoot straight down with it. But if there are any bends in the light whatsoever, turns, curves, or what have you, that lighting suddenly diminishes exponentially to the point of zero. Also, you can add to it the argument that, once your eyes adjust, it doesn't take a whole lot of light. And that's true, too, to the extent that if you're in total darkness, as I was pointing out earlier, it doesn't matter how much your eyes adjust, you can't see anything.
Yeah, at some point you can't. That's true. But that's what the way I've always thought that they did it. It just seems too logical not to do it and to do it without leaving soot behind and without using up your oxygen way down deep. So, and
how about the copper?
So
What?
Rachel in the chat room put a bunch of copper discs would be found, but there's no evidence to that case.
Answering my question.
Once they're done, they would have recycled that. They wouldn't
I see.
use them. That's too valuable. Big chunks like that, they had to use them for other things, and then made new ones when they needed to dig a new tomb or build a new pyramid. They wouldn't have just left them laying around.
Well, why not? They left the chicken bones.
What was that turkey bone? Maybe they're doing it on Thanksgiving.
Oh, well. Anyway, that's just my opinion.
So you don't go with the whole Dendara light thing and the use of like a Baghdad battery for generating light down in that area?
No, I don't go with that. You're giving them too much modern technology. I think it was something simpler, something that they could have easily done.
Well, no disrespect is intended, but I think that the lighting would have to be something that we today would be able to replicate, unless, particularly if it was that simple. I think we'd be able to do it in our bedrooms at night under the sheets or something.
But even with that said,
'cause you don't have
it
the sun.
just seems like if it was so simple, then why did we lose the technology? Why did we forget the technology? It would be something that we would continue on using throughout time.
Not if a society that used it fell completely apart, like the Egyptians. I mean, they were totally subjugated and fell apart and became a non-functioning society. So almost all of their knowledge was lost. So that was a high-tech thing that would require a continuation of their government and their leaders, and they didn't have that. Romans came in, took them over, and then the Greeks came in, took them over. They were they were pretty much lost, and everything they learned was lost with them, and that happens over and over
Jim,
again.
That's true. You know, our government, or any government, does have a nasty habit and ability to erase the truth behind what we really did, and you know, put the slant or the twist or the angle that they want to have on it, and so things can disappear. But I still have a strong faith in humanity, in that if we invented something that was simple, we probably would reinvent it.
Oh, well, we have. I mean, various people around the world have used reflected sunlight to light up interior surfaces over and over again. It's just that it hasn't been used again to the degree that they needed to use it. So, because we came up with other technologies since, and so the reflected sunlight was, you know, they quit using it because they had newer, better stuff, you know, newer gadgets.
They had candles.
That's the way it went. Huh?
All right. Thanks for calling, Jim.
You're welcome. I'm going to go back to typing.
Okay, back to the chat room with you.
Thanks
There
for the
you
chat.
go. Bye.
Bye. But you know what? It makes me wonder, and I don't have any research on this, the caves in like Lascaux, the ones in France, and some of the other ones that... Are they, though?
Yeah, they are.
Are they?
They are.
Have you researched that?
Yeah, I've seen pictures of it. They are soot-filled.
Okay, just checking. I don't know. So, I mean, because they don't look that dirty.
I thought you were talking about light bulbs. Yeah, why not?
Well, we're talking about light bulbs. I mean, there is a image in a temple in Dendara that shows, I mean, they show it on the Ancient Aliens show all the time, but it looks like these guys are holding a giant light bulb. And so there are people that speculate that they had the ability to use something akin to an electric light bulb, possibly powered with something like a Baghdad battery. There are actually images that are tied to some of the gods that look like little radio towers. I mean, they're kind of hard to identify what out of nature it could possibly be, but these are associated with these light bulb images. And so is it possible that...
we might have another caller.
Okay, well, I'm talking. You know, is it possible that... you know, electric lighting of some kind was used in these pyramids or other burial structures? You know, scientists say no, but we say, maybe. They didn't have to paint their whole kitchen, damn it. So do we have a caller?
Yes, we do.
Hello?
Hello. Hi, thanks for calling Just Energy Radio. Who's calling?
Hi, I guess there's a delay. I'm trying to... my name's Lisa.
Hi, Lisa.
Hello? And I was curious about, well, two things. I have a comment on, is our history hiding in plain sight? And my feeling is it probably is. And there's been a lot of effort, starting with religion, to prevent us from even thinking about it in the Western part of the world anyway, which I kind of resent because I think it would be a really interesting history. But I was curious, you were talking about psychic readings, and I was wondering what that is, what that would involve. If I was to get a psychic reading.
Well, did you want to get a reading right now? All you have to do is ask a question, and it has to be like a real question, not tell me something, but like a real question. If you want one now.
Okay.
If not, I can just tell you about psychic readings and what that's all about in the general sense.
Okay, yeah. Tell me this in general. My experience is I'm trying to write a book, and I've done this before. And what ends up happening after a while is I'll start, it's almost like I feel like I'm channeling things, and after a while, stuff starts to happen that I'm writing when I'm in almost a trance state. It really freaks me out sometimes, I'll tell you. In one of the stories, kind of in line with, the alleged killing off of a large swath of humanity through these, secret government groups, I thought, what can I use? And I thought, okay, we'll poison something everybody eats, and in that case I used wheat. And the next thing I knew, maybe 6 months later, there was the melamine scare in the pet food. I don't know if you remember that. Pet food and wheat gluten coming from China, and several people's pets had died, and it suddenly turned out that all kinds of pet food used the same basic ingredients, and so it didn't matter if you had some high-end thing or some, store brand. It all had the same stuff in it. So that is one strange psychic thing that I don't really know where it comes from, but I'm very curious if you want to talk about it, like, where do you think it's coming from? How do we access that? How can it be reliably accessed? Would that make sense?
Well, I mean, there is something that's called the collective conscious or the Akashic records where information is stored. And so when you are writing and you go into that, kind of trance, very deep level where you are kind of channeling, what I feel like you're doing is you are opening yourself up. I mean, in order to channel in the general sense of the word, you have to be able to open up the seventh chakra. The seventh chakra is the energy center that sits on the top of the head, and allow the flow of information, and I'm going to use this word in the most liberal way, allow the information of the divine to flow into you, whatever that is. And so if you ask a question, like, well, what's happening next with my book, or what should it be, and you ask that question and the answer you get is wheat, and you add that to your storyline and it comes through in that way, you have just opened yourself up to being in and with the flow of the energy on the planet. And so it's a very natural thing to have happen. It's, being in that place really does take energy and practice. It's a harder place to just kind of will yourself into. You have to get into that just very relaxed, meditative place. But with practice, anybody can do that. And so were they already finding issues with the wheat prior to that, before they went public with it? It's possible. There's a lot of possibilities. There's not a whole lot that's actually known how that mechanism works. Was it already out there? Were you peering into the future, so to speak, which is another possibility? It's a little hard to, be extremely specific about it, but, listening to what you're talking about, you were definitely connecting into the spiritual network, kind of like the spiritual internet that we all can interact with every day and do interact with.
It did feel like that at times. It's pretty wild.
There is a very definite feeling that happens. It's like you get, I'll do that periodically and I'll just start writing and, an hour later I'll be done and I'll go, wonder what I wrote. You kind of have a sense of what you maybe wrote, but you don't really know exactly.
Let me chime in for a second, too. I'm a musician, and also I'm a skeptic with regard to psychic stuff. And as a musician, I've been playing for many, 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 many years, since I was like 9 years old. And I discovered something called In the Groove. Further, when I got older, I started jogging, and I discovered something similar to being into the groove, and it's like after the burn. If you've been running for a while, you get into what's called a runner's high. And each of these events occur, I don't think are channeling, particularly in the musician side. I think what it is the brain gets in sync with your body and what you're doing. And when that happens, everything happens almost autonomically, kind of like breathing.
Well, but that's kind of what I'm saying, but it gives you the opportunity to bring in information from the universe.
I know.
But I think we're talking about the exact same thing, except with kind of different words tied to it.
Right. And the other thing I'm doing, too, is I'm not negating what you do. I certainly wouldn't do that. I think you're very good at what you do, and my personal experience with you has been the elimination of migraine headaches, for one, from my life, and I've had those since I was like 12 years old. So I know what you do does something. But when we talk about channeling, I think that is probably more the body and mind getting synced with itself, and then being able to relay things almost instantaneously without conscious thought. It's all.
Well, duh.
Duh. Okay.
That is what channeling is, baby.
Well, it was very interesting at the time that it was happening, and there were other things, weather-related things, that seemed to happen, again, like I said, 6 months to a year after I had written about them. It actually freaked me out a little bit. I had to put the book down.
Think about the person who wrote the book, and I'm just kind of making up a name, like Gargantuan, which was basically the story of the Titanic, except 6 months before the Titanic took off. He was obviously tapping into something that was out there, and it sounds like, and it's, I want to say everyone has that ability, but not everyone, it's kind of like being able to draw. Some people can draw good. Some people can not draw so good. But I think being able to tap into that energy takes time and practice and a little bit of ability, on the individual's part. And so I'm just going to keep your name on file. So when something bad happens, I can go, it was all Lisa's fault.
Oh, thanks.
Okay?
Very good.
All right. Thanks for calling in.
Bye-bye.
All right. Bye-bye. Well, that was pretty interesting. Can you imagine, if you had the ability to, control the weather or, I'm not, totally blaming Lisa at all, but can you imagine if that was just something that we could do, is to, control people or manipulate the weather? We know that the government tries doing that, but could you imagine if there were individuals that were able to do that as well?
Well, let me precede your question with an answer, but first let me say that between the two of us in our garage talks, we tend to like to keep both our feet on the ground, and we try to stay as much on the science side as we can and stay away from the science fiction side as much as possible. And so I can imagine what you said, sure. Could it happen? Well, I don't know. What's the law of probability on that? 1 in 100 billion trillion or gazillion or?
Well, I'm not saying it could happen, but could you imagine if it could? That would be kind of weird, and it would be really actually scary if everybody had the ability inadvertently to change the weather. They talk about HAARP. And see, I'm giving you a door here. They talk about HAARP giving the government or multiple governments the ability to control our weather, whether it's HAARP or something else. But can you imagine if it was an individual ooh, I think I'm going to change the weather today. Bing! Nod my head. Hey, even the gods couldn't change the weather.
Oh, I don't know. I don't know that.
Well, it doesn't show that in mythology. Now, their vehicles could.
Oh, yeah, they're vehicles, not themselves. They didn't, but they had tools that could alter or create what they called lightning, which was mega lightning and mega thunder, and they could cause tsunamis, and they had the ability through their technology, according to the mythology, to do all of that. And is it possible that we currently have that technology?
If you'd like to chime in, 888-919-2355. That was just a side note.
888-919-2355. A call on the subject would be very interesting, I think.
Okay. But as you were saying.
As I was saying, yes. I think today there is something called HAARP, H-A-A-R-P. And some persons, I don't know if I'm on board with this or not, are suggesting that HAARP is capable of playing with the super stratosphere, that's way up in the sky, using mega voltages to heat the sky up and cause various strange effects in the weather, like leading hurricanes from where they would normally have gone to where we want them to be. So could we have the tools today to do it? Well, suggestions are maybe we do. HAARP is one of them. However, we need to add to that science is being researched, and it's not just in the United States. There are many countries experimenting with the concept of HAARP. Now, the surface reason for HAARP was to communicate with submarines underwater. You remember my experiment earlier I mentioned where you put a penny on a table and put a speaker underneath it? The concept is something called subsonics. Subsonics. That's sound that's very deep. So you really don't have to hear the sound. You can feel it. And if you take that sound and shoot it into water, it transmits better than if you try to use, say, an electronic wave or an air wave. This is a super subsonic wave, for that matter. I don't know. I'm not a physicist. But anyway, the bottom line on this is there is the potential for being able to alter the Earth's environment by playing with the stratosphere, superheating it in particular. And if you hit it, I think, with some subsonic sounds, yes, I think you could also cause clouds to move away from that. And some were saying you can bounce those sound waves off the stratosphere and target them and a superfine target to another place on the planet and super vibrate that place to the point of perhaps maybe even an earthquake. So not only could HAARP then play with the weather, they could also play with events in the ground like earthquakes.
Well, it sounds like they are coming back up with technology that the gods of our past had, because it sounds like they were able to do very similar things: typhoons, lightnings, hurricanes, do all kinds of things to affect the planet, whether it be weather-wise or earthquakes or tsunamis, all kinds of things.
Yeah, I think all of that is quite possible within our current state of technology today. We, I think, are able to do these things. Are we actually doing it? Do we have the technology put together to do it? I don't know. It's kind of like, do I believe in UFOs today? I don't have the answers necessary to be able to say yes or no. I say there's something going on in our sky today. I think that there's a lot more to HAARP than we know, and we can go to the UFO side if you want.
Actually, we only have about 10 more minutes left.
And I don't have that much time.
Yeah, we don't have that much time. But I do want to throw out one more question, if you want to call in, because I want to announce this too, and that is about 2012. Tick, tick, tick. Look at your watch. Less than a month left before the world's coming to an end, or at least that's what some people say. And so what do you think about 2012? I definitely have my opinion. I'm not really sure what Wayne's opinion is, but I guess we're going to find out. But there's a but. I mean, other than going to Amazon.com and getting your copy of Man-Made, The Chronicles of Our Extraterrestrial Gods for $4.99. See, I learned very good from Jerry Pippin of JerryPippin.com. Very well. See, I'm good. Anyway, on December 21st, 2012, so like the day the world comes to an end, just in case it doesn't come to an end, we will be here at Just Energy Radio live, taking your calls. Now, we're not necessarily going to be doing on-air readings, but we are going to be asking the listeners to call in and talk about what you did while the world was coming to an end. So, if you built a bunker in your backyard, if you have a garage full of beans like my sister did at the Y2K, whatever it is that you did to prepare or not prepare for December 21st, or if you know someone, so we could talk about it bad and laugh, that is doing something for December 21st, 2012, call in to the show, and we'd like to hear your comments and questions, or it's really going to be a show about just having fun, because we survived to live another day or two till the tax cuts come in, or the tax cuts go away, whatever's happening in January. But anyway, December 21st, Wayne, what do you think?
I want to talk about what I did the day after the world ended. This will be a fascinating concept.
Are you going to channel that in so you know in advance of what you're going to do?
Certainly. I'm going to play the drums until I get the answer.
No, seriously, what do you think is going to happen on December 21st?
Frankly, I think nothing's going to happen December 21st, except a bunch of people might freak out and go out and get drunk and maybe have some more wrecks, or maybe they'll go run their credit cards up to the max thinking they won't have to pay them anyway and might as well enjoy life while we got it. And then there will be others who will be a little bit more grounded, maybe their feet on the planet, and be looking forward to ain't nothing happening here. And let's take a look at what's going to happen tomorrow. And maybe, somebody suggested in the chat line, party all night. Absolutely. Absolutely. There'll be a lot of great parties. And what a good reason, what a better reason than, hey, we didn't blow up.
Actually, there was a comment in the chat room that says if anything happens, and let me get the exact thing, it will be human cause. And I think there's so much hype around this whole 2012 concept. I mean, I don't think anything, spiritually or whatever is going on. But, if the government really wanted to utilize a time where they have people pretty much in their hand that they could get away with just about anything and then blame it on 2012, it would be December 21st, 2012, or somewhere in that area of time.
Oh, yeah. I don't have a problem with that concept either. We've got a lot of stuff going on in the Middle East right now that's not hitting the U.S. news, and we're right in the middle of it, believe it or not. And
say it isn't so.
I'm saying it's so. And that brings to mind a lot of nasty things that could happen and be fabricated around December 21st. I really hate the concept. But, yeah, I could see us getting deeply involved in something that won't destroy the world necessarily, but could be very nasty for the planet on the 21st. It could happen, I suppose.
Yeah. But we're going to be here, and actually there are so many different events going on that weekend. Some of the good friends of Just Energy Radio, like I know Carmen Bolder and Philip Coppens, I think together are doing something in Egypt. Giorgio Zouklos, the guy from Ancient Aliens, the guy with the hair, is doing something in New Orleans. Robert Schoch, who we were talking about earlier, is doing something in Egypt. I mean, all you really need to do is look up 2012 Egypt or 2012 celebration, and there are so many different events that are being that are happening that weekend or the week before leading up to 2012. What their viewpoint is, what their position is. Are we transcending? Are we all going to die? I don't think anybody really believes we're all going to die, but I think in our hearts, we're afraid it might happen, which really adds to the tension. We don't know, but it could happen. It's possible. And I'm really ready for that date to come and go so that we can move on and move past this thing of fear that we've been in for the last year, definitely, and more.
Yeah, I think December 22nd, this is where mankind across the planet can actually take control of history and erase the memory of December 21st so we can move forward without that fear, that cloud of fear hanging over us, or the uncertainty. Man's greatest fear is uncertainty. So December 22nd, that fear can go bye-bye, and we can move forward by erasing the memory of that and making life a little bit better for each of us.
So, I mean, we weren't together back then, but what did you do for Y2K? Anything?
I watched television. It was great. It was New Year's, and we had this enormous party because I believe parties are kind of fun to have no matter what kind of disaster is happening outside. And then the day after, we went outside, and we had a terrific time checking out the weather and the sunshine. It was actually a cool day that day, cold day. And recognizing Y2K did absolutely nothing, not even to my home computer.
I mean, I remember when that happened and we were watching TV, but it was before midnight. And we were, with the thought in mind, well, Walmart's open 24-hour, and they had New Year's in New Zealand, or I don't know. It was these, we were waiting for what would be considered, more of a backwater New Year's, because if their lights were still on and they were still happening and having New Year's without everything going kaput, then by the time New Year's actually hit, the date rollover in the United States hit, we would be fine. If they had problems, I would maybe worry, but they didn't have problems, so why worry? Although I did have a couple of extra gallons of water, but that was about it.
I don't know. I think I bought some water, mostly because I like to drink it.
My sister bought literally 20 cases of beans, and a couple of years later, they were still eating beans. They were all stacked up in her house.
Well, this year we won't have anything stacked up in our house except a good time and the 22nd where we'll do the show.
No, it's on the 21st.
Oh, it's on the 21st. See, I'm already erasing the 21st. It's going to be a great show, and we hope everybody who's listening to this one will tune into that one. We're going to have a lot of fun, and we're going to have some people talking with us, and we're going to take
Actually,
calls.
we're going to be joined by John Michael Greer, who wrote the book Apocalypse Not. He was on the show before. He's on the Just Energy Radio website in our archives. He's a hoot. He's going to be a lot of fun to have on the show. But again, we want your calls. You know, we want to open up the phone lines and have your calls about what you were doing. You know, the party that you went to, the party that you're going to tonight. We don't care, because it's really a time for us to kind of diffuse the tension and the energy and have a chance to laugh at ourselves, you know, for being so afraid, even if it wasn't on a conscious level, and just go, ah.
And that will give us our chance to maybe give our little bit to the world, where on December 25th, we also can have a nice Christmas with one less fear behind us.
Yeah. But the music's going to be coming up here in a second, Wayne. So, hey, happy day after happy Black Friday.
Yeah, happy Black Friday. And don't forget, on Black Friday that we have a book that's like on sale.
Well, here, finish
Amazon.com. Was it $4.99? Is that what
$4.99.
Yeah, $4.99. It's not really expensive, and if you got it yourself, one of those readers, you can sit down and read it at your leisure and enjoy it. And we did write in layers, so once you read it the first time, stop and go back and do it again, because you won't believe what you missed. There's a lot of stuff in there. It is information packed, lots of good stuff in it, and for $4.99, who can beat it?
Yeah, that's Amazon.com, the Kindle edition only. If you want a signed copy of the book, you can go to the soulhealer.com website and get a copy there, signed by myself.
And you can make a donation.
And Wayne. And I'm going to go tie this man up, I think. He'd probably like it too much.
No. We can move forward. All right. So
anyway, guys, until next week. Let me see who we got coming on the show next week. Next week, Thomas Nolan and John Capello. And so until then, I'm Dr. Rita Louise.
And let me tell you, Thomas Nolan married us, so he's going to be a great guest.
This is Just Energy Radio. Till then, be blessed.
Can I say something about Man-Made Chronicles? I was so pleased you let me read it in, draft form, I guess it was. And boy, I'm excited about it. So everyone should order that too.
I read your manuscript, which I really, really enjoyed. And what I liked about your manuscript was I got a feeling from it that these kinds of beings and these kinds of stories are actually real things. And that what we're getting down here in our human records is we're actually getting the traces of the actual stories of those beings. I loved the idea of how you brought forth the possibility that the myths that we have and the stories that we have and the religious records that we have are actually their records and their stories.
Bye.